suspect is accused of keeping over 200 animals in and around her home in Marion County.
A hearing today in Washington County to determine what to do with 100 dogs taken from a private home. Greenville City Police seized dozens of dogs and made one arrest in a puppy mill raid Monday night. The dogs will be kept at the county shelter pending the suspect's trial.
The reason that this project is so incredibly exciting to me is because it has so much potential for widespread impact and it's so unique. My name is Kristen Collins, and I'm the Director of Anti-Cruelty Behavior Rehabilitation, and I am overseeing all operations here at the Rehab Center. The ASPCA Behavioral Rehabilitation Center is the first ever facility dedicated to the rehabilitation of canine victims of animal cruelty, like dogs from puppy mills and hoarding cases. Not only will we be helping the dogs we bring into the program, we'll also be keeping track of what's working and what's not working. This way, at the end of our 2-year project, we hope to discover how best to rehabilitate these fearful dogs.
This project was born from a real need. We were working a hoarding case in Western Tennessee. It was probably 100 degrees that day. There were about 100 dogs living in a field, and the sheriff was going to shoot all the dogs. We had to catch all the dogs, medically and behaviorally assess all the dogs, and place all the dogs in about 16 hours. There were 4 dogs left that we did not have placement for because they needed just a little bit more help. It's these emotional wounds that can be the most debilitating and can cause needless euthanasia for animals. So that night, we determined in June of 2010 that the ASPCA needed a space where abused animals can come and recover and be dogs.
Today, Lauren and I are going to pick up 3 Malamutes. They're coming from a rescue in Virginia. Angela Brown, who runs that rescue, is going to meet us in Pennsylvania. The Mals are from a puppy mill in Montana. Angela's told us that they're unsocialized and really fearful. I hope we can help them. If we can't resolve their behavior problems, these dogs will never find loving homes.
Each day I get here about 5 in the morning and I spend 12 hours here working with dogs. It's a commitment, but it works for me. Last year, just here, we were able to adopt 51 Malamutes. And so that would be 51 that would otherwise be dead. The Malamutes were seized from a puppy mill in Montana on October 11, 2011. There were over 160 dogs, several of which were pregnant, so that resulted in a little over 200 dogs. The dogs, upon seizure, were in very, very poor condition. There's a girl here, she weighed about 35 pounds, and she had 9 puppies, and only one of her puppies survived. The owner would throw a bag of food in with 150 dogs, and there would be fights. So we have dogs with no ears. There were, oh gosh, probably 40, 50 easily that were so fearful that they just could not adjust. And we contacted the ASPCA about the new rehab center because these are dogs that would otherwise not have a chance.
Hey, Angela. So where are you now? Well, let's figure out where we can meet.
Lovely weather.
Wow, this is great. Great weather.
Do you like the weather?
Malamute weather.
This is
So-
Tabitha. Hi, Tabitha. How are you?
Avalon.
Avalon and Thunder in the back.
Thunder's in the back, yeah.
All right, awesome. Want a second lead on any of them? The dogs initially looked a bit timid and relatively calm in their crates until they came out.
Good, good. It's okay, girl. It's okay.
Angela blows me away. She's incredible. She's not a large woman, yet she handles these huge Malamutes so well.
All right, Avalon.
These 3 are super shy, and they right now probably are not adoptable. And hopefully this program will help them become adoptable.
It's okay. It's okay. Thunder. Ready? No, this way.
It's okay, I can be back if you want to.
Ready? Come on.
I know it's weird. Don't worry. You're gonna like your new digs.
All right.
Thank you
thanks.
very
Be
much.
careful.
Drive safe. We
Yep,
will.
you too. All right.
I don't know what kind of progress these 3 dogs are going to make. That's one of the reasons that this project is so important. We don't know what the predictors are of success for dogs like these, so I have no way of knowing how they're going to do. Many dogs from puppy mill and hoarding case backgrounds are so fearful that they can't get adopted. When we saw these dogs, we removed them from the property, and then we did medical intake. We cared for them. We helped them become physically better. And then there was a group of dogs that really needed more help than that. They needed behavioral healing, too, because they simply weren't placeable. They don't go into homes and recover with just time and love. They've been too behaviorally damaged. It was heartbreaking, and we didn't feel like we were truly rescuing them. This project is the answer. We can help these dogs. We can take them in, and we can provide that behavioral healing they need, and we can make many of them adoptable, I believe. We won't be able to save them all, but I think we can make an incredible difference. I think this project can have such an impact.
Shelters all across the country don't always have the resources to help the most critically fearful dogs.
Kat designed a database using FileMaker and iPads, and she has been the driving force behind the development of our study.
Daily progress is being tracked on individual dogs through their treatments and through the enrichment that we do with them every single day. We are also performing behavior evaluation that puts the dog in real-life situations that they're likely to experience and evaluates how they're able to cope with that.
We meet every morning to make sure we know who's doing what and to talk about challenges and also breakthroughs. Do you guys know what you're gonna do? We're ready. Awesome. All right, let's do it. Today, we had 6 dogs come in, 5 dachshunds and 1 little Chihuahua mix. We are going to do a medical examination first. So what we do is we just look at their teeth, check to see if they're hydrated well, see if they need any vaccinations. Just make sure they're generally healthy before they go right into the kennels. dachshunds came to us from our Cruelty Intervention Advocacy Department. They were working on a case, and they went into the house and found many, many dachshunds there.
When we first went to visit, the pet owner was resistant, and by repeated visits and by bringing supplies such as pet food and other items, we really started to gain their trust. The first time I walked into this home, it was really overwhelming. First of all, they were all barking at us. You know, there was urine and feces all over the house. We saw that there were 55 dachshunds, that the dogs were having litter after litter, and that only a couple were spayed and neutered. We quickly realized that this was an intervention that really needed to happen and happen quickly.
During her intake today, Lily was really frightened. She was quivering the entire time, and her eyeballs were huge. I know that she was really terrified on the property, and when they tried to remove her, she bit the owner on the ear. Good girl.
Ready?
You look nice in your new digs.
It'll be good.
Sugar is, he's a spitfire. He's definitely defensive. So when you try to approach him, it's really tough to leash him up. He bares his teeth and he will snap and bark aggressively at you. He looks like he's interested in interacting, but he's at times all teeth. He's clearly under-socialized to people. We may be able to help him overcome his defensive behavior and learn to like people. We are incredibly excited to give them what they deserve at this point. But they have a long road ahead. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and I have always loved animals. These are my 3 dogs. This is Tofu. She came from a hoarding case in Tennessee. She had 74 other dogs living in the house with her. And then we have Wink, the border collie, who came from the Richmond SPCA, and he's so much fun. And then there's Juno, who is 13 and a half. Juno has been with me since she was only 5 weeks old. I've channeled all of my maternal instincts into her. I wake up every morning passionately believing in what we are doing and why we are doing it. I hope people will understand that the dogs that come from these terrible situations can indeed make wonderful pets. A dog that's had a hard start in life really deserves a happy ending. After 3 days of enrichment and care, the dogs are ready for their first behavior evaluation, which is basically a series of tests to determine each dog's level of fear.
Hi there, how are you? Hey, sweetie. There.
Pia is very well known in our industry, and for good reason. She is an incredible trainer. She's great doing behavior modification, and we're grateful to St. Hubert's.
What we are doing in the first evaluation is establishing a baseline. We expose them to various situations that they would experience during life as a pet dog and use that as a guide during their treatment. Since many of these animals come from puppy mills or hoarding cases, it's not uncommon for them to have never seen or used a staircase.
Good.
A common situation in everyday life of a pet dog can be an unfamiliar, scary obstacle to them. One of the last tests for our evaluation is to put the dog in an everyday type of room, which we built here specifically for this purpose. Through the use of a baby monitor, we watch what they do when they are alone. Do they look anxious? Are they inquisitive? Do they relax, or do they bark? We track it all.
The treatment protocols that we use are based in science. It's based on what we know of clinical animal behavior, which is a science that has existed for a few decades now. And basically, that science is dedicated towards understanding why animals behave in the certain ways that they do and how we can change their behavior.
Fear doesn't always show itself by the dog huddling in a back corner, shivering uncontrollably, or urinating. But whether it's obvious or whether it takes a trained professional to diagnose it, fear of people is always debilitating to a companion animal. Can you imagine living life in a state of constant terror? That's what these dogs live with day to day.
A puppy mill is basically a large-scale commercial dog breeding facility where profit is put ahead of the well-being of the dogs. And we're talking about the breeding dogs here, not the puppies. So those cute little puppies in the pet stores, they get out very early. This is where their mom and dad live their whole lives. So the ASPCA estimates that there are probably about 10,000 puppy mills. Missouri has more puppy mills than any other state in the country by far. And then when you sort of spread from Missouri, you start to see higher prevalences in the states around them. A puppy mill can have as few as 10 dogs, or it can have as many as 1,000 dogs. The breeding dogs typically live in very small cages. They're usually no more than 6 inches longer than the dog in each direction, which is what they legally have to be. They usually live on wire flooring, which can injure their paws. They're usually stacked on top of each other, which means feces and urine can rain down onto the dogs below. Water bowls that are full of algae or that have feces in them so that it's not really even drinkable for the dogs. There's usually a very, very severe lack of veterinary care, so we often see dogs suffering from things that are easily treatable by a veterinarian. But the breeders don't want to spend the money on those vets because they want to make as much money as they can. Imagine having a toothache that lasts for 8 years because you never get to see a dentist. We often see a lot of mange and skin diseases. Dogs whose hair is so heavily matted that their fur actually can tear their skin. We usually see dogs who have had very little human contact, and because of that, they shy away from human touch. If you buy a puppy in a pet store or online or at a flea market or someplace where you haven't actually seen where that puppy comes from, you're running the risk of buying a dog that has anything from an upper respiratory infection to something severe like parvo or distemper, which can be fatal. And you also run the risk that that dog is going to show up with genetic defects later in life. We estimate that about 99% of puppies in pet stores come from puppy mills. What we're trying to get pet stores to do is not sell puppies and instead work with their local community to make adoptable animals available in their stores. If you do buy a puppy at a pet store or online, not only do you run the risk of taking home a sick puppy, but you're also supporting a very cruel industry.
Today is the first day of treatments, and the whole team is really excited. So our plan is designed to treat the common problems we see in dogs from puppy mill cases and hoarding cases. There are protocols that help the dogs overcome fear of walking on a leash. There are protocols that help dogs overcome the fear of people. Then the fear of handling is another big thing they struggle with. And the last one is fear of novelty. So many of our protocols help them learn to experience new things. Lily is making slow, steady progress. She does like training. So we taught her to hand target, and we started to see social behavior in that context.
The treatment I enjoy best is probably hand targeting. It's a lot of fun to see the dogs pick up on, I look at the person's hand and I get a treat, and then they work up to reaching towards the hand until they're actually touching your hand, so that hands aren't as scary for them.
She consistently has a problem with her back paws being touched. She likes to offer her front paws instead, so we have to work on that. I may have to work up to just reaching for her back paws and not actually touching them first. Good girl.
Today we're gonna do a quiet time in pen session with Thunder. He's shown very little social behavior, so what I'm hoping to do during this session is just create some new associations so that he is associating me with things like cheese and toys and good stuff. Come on, let's go inside here. And we're about to do a session where he is allowed to approach me to get food, but I'm not gonna put any pressure on him to do so. So if he decides to approach, he can, but he doesn't have to. If he would prefer to sniff around and leave me alone, he can do that too. Thunder's initial evaluation concerned me greatly. We saw no friendly behavior throughout the entire evaluation. He seemed extremely fearful, and when we tried to touch him, he was defensive and growled and moved his head like he was going to snap. So I'm gonna throw food pretty far away from me at first, so he doesn't have to make himself uncomfortable by approaching. Ready? Good man. He's definitely keeping his distance, and proximity is obviously a big clue. He's not comfortable enough to approach, and he's also moving very hesitantly. He's watching everybody in the space, and those little barks he's giving are little suspicious alarm barks. These guys are as a group, Malamutes, are usually pretty vocal, so it's not surprising me that he's expressing his discomfort by barking a little bit. And it makes sense. He's not sure what's going on right now.
Hey, bud. Some cheese? Good boy. That's very good. You be brave?
Poor Thunder, he's blowing his coat. He needs to be groomed. He's got tufts of fur coming off of him. And normally, what you do is you'd brush the dog to remove those tufts that are coming off. But Thunder is extremely uncomfortable with handling, and he'll growl if you try to touch him or groom him. Thunder's a big boy, so if he is fearful and he is not okay with touching, for example, that's gonna be a problem for him going into a home. One of the most important things, I think, to realize about under-socialized dogs is that forcing them to interact with people usually is a very bad idea. If I were to pressure him right now and approach him instead of allowing him to approach me, that could be, number one, dangerous for me, but also that could convince him that people are indeed very scary. A lot of the time, fearful dogs are much more comfortable approaching you from behind instead of the front. Because dogs are individuals, not all treatments will work the same for them. Although this is a study and we have a plan, we do realize that we need to be flexible. Some of these dogs will need a little more work on one problem, so we are adjusting based on the dog's reactions to what we're doing.
One treatment involved Avalon, one of the Malamutes, and working with her on the stairs.
While Cheryl's gotten her used to the turf-covered steps, so far Avalon has refused to walk down the wooden side.
In terms of Avalon, I've found her treatment to be slow and steady. There is a fear, I think, for everybody on the team that individual dogs are not going to be able to graduate through the program. We are dealing with dogs that have such a tremendous amount of fear and anxiety. That's my girl. There she is. There she is. Would I like for every single dog to come out on the other end and be successful? Absolutely. But that's not really a reality.
You got it. You got it. You had it. Oh, that's so scary, but you're so brave. Look how brave you are. You are so brave. Oh, my goodness. Good girl. That was awesome. Oh my.
So this is actually the first time that Avalon's actually gone up and down the wood stairs. We've been working really hard on the grassy stairs, but those wooden stairs are a little bit scarier. They're slippery, they don't have any backs on them, and that can be a whole lot more frightening for a dog. This was the first time, it was awesome.
Good girl. Oh, I said good.
I'm really worried about Tabitha. She really did exhibit social behavior, just hints of social behavior from the beginning. She was curious. She seems to be making the slowest progress of them all.
We're trying to prepare her for a less stressful transport once she is transported back to her rescue group or to a potential adopter. We want to make it as stress-free as possible. Right now, she is still a bit apprehensive, but we're doing a special kind of training to get her used to it. The first step is to get her into the kennel. So we use a low-value reward. We're using kibble for that. And I'm just putting a couple pieces in the back here. Every time she steps further into the crate, I'm going to mark it with the word good or yes and toss in a higher value treat, such as this cheese. Good job, good. So see, at first she's trying to see any possible way she can get those treats without going inside the crate. Come on in, honey. Yes. You'll see she's really stretching, doing everything she can to not fully commit to stepping her whole body inside. You can do it. Try another. Need a break? Okay. That's it. Good girl. Yay! Good job, Tabitha. Good. That's it. Yes. Good. Come on, Mama. Let's go.
This is Salty. This is actually her first treatment session ever. So we're gonna do a helper dog playgroup with Pepper, who has already decided he likes people. Salty is more fearful. It'll be great for her to hang out with one who's not worried about us.
We have found through doing play groups, a lot of them actually come out of their shell, and that is actually a treatment that we do. It's called helper dog play groups.
So the idea here is that Salty will do whatever she wants to do, and that the presence of this other dog will relax her enough to help her work up the bravery to greet us. Lauren's also practicing Pepper's very fancy new trick. He has learned to gimme 5. It helps dogs get used to paw handling, which many are very sensitive about. We've seen Salty play with toys inside her kennel, so I'm hoping that she'll become comfortable enough to play out here after she gets used to the grass, which is apparently very strange. And then Salty started to really get into playing with Pepper. She was having fun for the first time since she arrived. And then it happened. We had a breakthrough with Salty. She approached me and took some food, which was a first. Our helper dog strategy worked.
That is very brave. Bravo. It's really amazing to see the more fearful dog actually start to approach the person as well.
I think she just realized she was close to me. This might seem tiny, but for Salty, it was a big step forward. Don't want to leave? It is kind of a nice yard. I promise you can come back.
Sugar's a Chihuahua mix from a hoarding case who comes up and barks at you every time you walk by his kennel. So most people would probably assume that he is not fearful because his tail is upright, his ears are forward, and he's bark, 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 versus most of the other dogs who are cowering in the back of the kennel, perhaps.
One of Sugar's main issues is not wanting to be touched, so I'm kind of amazed that after just 1 week of treatment, he's doing so well. He seems to have formed a connection with Cheryl.
Touch. Good. That's a good boy.
We start off working with the dogs in their kennel, just being comfortable with our presence. And as they become more comfortable and more familiar with us, then we can start to work on things like us being able to reach towards them, us being able to get them to look to us, and then further on into handling treatments. What I have noticed is that some dogs respond a little bit better to just really patient, slow, gentle handling, and others do need a little bit more of a push.
Are you ready to go back? You did some good work. Come on, Pop. That's a good boy.
Avalon is still really worried when you approach and when you touch her. Her level of fear, I think, has reduced, but she's not made the leaps of progress that we've seen with Thunder. I think there was a major breakthrough when we took him outside and we started to attempt to play with him with toys.
What's that?
We didn't expect him to respond to that at all, but we tried some squeaky toys with him and we saw some playful behavior. And as soon as we did, we ran with that. I think that was an enormously important discovery.
Obviously, the toys aren't nearly as much fun if they're not moving, so people, I hope he will discover, have the power to make his toys fun.
These dogs from these backgrounds, they don't usually know what toys are. He's just a playful dog, and that was sort of awakened in him. It's the first glimpse of him enjoying life.
Hoarding is a psychological disorder, and it's a compulsive disorder that affects people in many different ways, and animal hoarding is just one of them.
We've seen hoarding situations that might have as few as a dozen animals up to more than 1,000. It's really not based on the total number of animals, but the quality of life they provide for the animals. Hoarders are oblivious to the harm that they're causing, when in fact there are dead animals on the bed, dead animals on the kitchen table. If you just go in, take the animals away, and leave the situation, the relapse rate is virtually 100%.
Animals that come out of hoarding cases often exhibit extreme fear because they've been born and certainly lived in an environment where they literally have to fight for every inch of space. I've seen houses with, 200 medium-sized dogs, where dogs are standing on kitchen tables and kitchen countertops just to be able to have space to move around.
In the past, if there were serious behavioral problems or other medical problems, often the response was euthanasia. The perception has changed now. We recognize that the victims of cruelty are individuals that deserve some added extra effort to try to undo the harm that has been done to them by human beings.
You suspect that something's going on, we urge people to just take the time to look into it, make the call, because that one call is often what it takes to really trigger the help that both the animals and the individuals may need.
It's been a few months since all the dogs started their treatment, and we're really happy with their progress. Some of our most fearful ones seem to be progressing at a rate I didn't expect, and some of our least fearful are taking more time to respond to treatments. This just confirms what all dog owners already know, that every dog is an individual, just like us humans.
Hi, Tabitha.
Well, what we're gonna do is get Tabitha out because she needs help with thresholds. She does a very, very poor job of walking through them because they scare her to death. So what we're gonna try to do is bring her through here using Juno as a helper dog. She's gonna walk through and go, yay, it's food. And hopefully Tabitha will walk through and say, yay, it's food also. She's excited about the food and the sleeping and the food, plus the food. Oh, it's a food.
As you can see, Tabitha hesitates and backs away. This is really hard for her. Amazingly, on the second try, Tabitha walks through. Being able to follow Juno boosted Tabitha's confidence and reduced her stress levels significantly. And the important thing to do now is to reinforce the behavior by repeating it over and over again until Tabitha associates tasty treats and good times with walking through doorways. I'm really proud of Tabitha, and I love that Juno was able to help. Most good things in life are because of Juno. Thank you for helping.
You were a very good helper dog. Or wood pig.
We made an incredible discovery today. We decided to try the Malamutes together. We thought we'd try to take Avalon and Thunder, put them in the play area, and monitor closely to see how it went. And surprise, surprise, they played and played and played. It was very interesting to see how much they both loosened up and played. We had no idea that they were gonna like each other, and they do. We're definitely gonna incorporate play with each other into their treatment. The final part of today's treatment is to introduce them to the joys of the puppy pool. Like the toys, this is probably the first chance they've had to play in a pool. They just don't know what they're missing. But on the bright side, it's clear we have a love connection. Salty is moving along, but she's not making a lot of progress at this point. We're gonna try putting her in some different situations with helper dogs.
So what we're going to be doing today is taking both Pepper and Salty to meet some new people. Salty tends to be a little bit more tentative, and so Pepper being there offers her a little bit more comfort. Hi, Anne. Hi. Would you mind coming out and saying hi to Salty? Absolutely. There she is. This is Salty over here. BFFs with Pepper. We start by having a novel person give treats to both of them. Then I slowly back off with Pepper and let Salty do it all by herself. Salty did such a great job that we decided to ask some folks walking by if they would also like to give them treats. They were more than happy to help, and I thought Salty did really well. I love when treatments work out. Fantastic. You got to meet some new friends.
Lily's making slow, steady progress, but she's still really worried about handling. So we're gonna try body targeting and see how that goes.
Touch. So what we started to do with her was, if I put out my hand, have her give us her tushies. Thank you. And then I work my hand down to her feet. Initially, she was very afraid of that. What we're going to do is focus on building a positive association with the crate. We are doing this crate training because she is very close to graduating and going to hopefully St. Hubert's and then being placed in a home. That'll definitely set her up for success.
Lily.
Good man.
When he first came to us, he was really fearful about anybody touching any part of his body. So the fact that Thunder is letting Jill touch him like this seems like a small thing, but in fact, for this particular dog, it's an enormous thing. What do you think? This is so much better than he was during his last evaluation even. They seem to prefer not being touched, and they may be that way for the rest of their lives. Our job here is to make it so that they can be handled if that's necessary. Yeah, good. That was good. We've switched now to Jill touching him instead of him touching Jill. Instead of being cautious with our movements, we've started to move more like an adopter might and just reach out and touch him. How is he with the brush at this point? No, take the brush. When he first came, we all went crazy wanting to pluck the tufts off, but there was no way we could get near him with a brush. It's nice that even though he's uncomfortable, he's able to cope with the fear and discomfort he has.
Good. That is so good. Very good job. Hooray. That was great.
What? Pretty girl. So Avalon is at a very different spot than Thunder when working with handling. She will tolerate handling, and where Thunder will let you know that he doesn't like it, she kind of shuts down and looks miserable, but will let you touch her. So I'm just using the clicker to mark when she stood still long enough and let me pet her, basically.
Can I touch your paw? Work down there? Oh, it's horrible. The paw touching is horrible. So I'm just gonna touch the paw and give her a treat, or a couple treats. Good girl. When she first came in, she was a lot like Thunder, where if she accidentally bumped into you, she would be terrified. Now, when I went to go get her out of her kennel, she was jumping up and down and spinning in circles and very excited to be coming out. There's a couple challenges that we still have. She's very sensitive to sound and movement, and her adopters will have to continue to work on that.
We're about to start Sugar's final evaluation. And I'm very hopeful because he's made many strides over the past few months.
One dog who may be very confident in a kennel, very confident when walking on a leash, when they meet strangers or when they meet certain objects, they are incredibly fearful. Some of them do show aggression when they're fearful. We don't have a lot of those dogs, but Sugar's one of them. So our evaluation is really helpful in understanding the different complexities of fear.
All dogs in our program go through 3 evaluations over the course of their stay here. A lot of it is basically a repeat of the same tests. This way, we can compare their responses over time and see how much better or worse they're doing. One of the last tests in our evaluation is leaving the dog alone in the outdoor pen and recording how many taped lines they cross. Some dogs will explore, some stay frozen in one spot, some frantically pace around or try to escape. After 3 minutes, the evaluator joins the dog in the pen and stands on the X. We then use the circles to determine how close the dog gets to the person. Sugar's evaluation went so well. He's ready. He's ready to go home. We're about to begin Thunder and Avalon's last treatment. They've come a long way in just a few months. We're excited about the prospect of finding them a forever home.
We are going to have Thunder and Avalon meet new people that they never met before.
To see Thunder and Avalon's entire demeanor change in just a few months has been incredible. Knowing how fearful they once were of strangers and seeing them today tells me they are truly ready to be adopted.
Today is Sugar and Salty's last day with us. We're really excited to see them move on to the next chapter of their life. She's just one of these dogs. She's just so happy. You can't help but smile when you see her. To put in, the time day after day and be able to see the progress that we've seen, I can't even describe it. It's such an amazing feeling. They've come a long way, and it's going to be hard to see them go.
This is Lily's last day here at the rehab center. She is actually graduating today, along with Caramel, Chrysanthemum, and Pepper. Lily has had amazing progress. You could tell that she really just wanted some human affection. She has been a delight to work with. Her and the 3 other dachshunds are going to be going right over to St. Hubert's to be adopted out. I'm going to be sad to see Lily go. However, I'm very excited for her to be adopted into a new home.
Today we are thrilled because Avalon and Thunder are going to their forever home together. The adopters are Malamute enthusiasts, which I think is great because they already know what to expect from the breed. I'm very pleased they're going, but I'm gonna miss them a lot. When we drove out to get them from Angela Brown, I remember seeing them in their crates in her truck, seeing their faces and thinking, those are extremely terrified dogs. I don't know if we can help them. And now, after a great deal of work, to see the immense amount of progress they've made, I couldn't be prouder of them.
Hi, Bill. Thanks for coming. Nice to meet you. You ready to meet the dogs?
Yes, I am.
Let's do it. So as you can see, they're in love. Oh, look at his tail. His tail's up.
That's good. Hi, would you like cheese too? I'm gonna give cheese to your dad.
I know. I see. We also told him to give kisses, so he'll. Oh, good. Good. Oh, so brave.
You're so brave. Oh, you're so good. Have a cheese.
Oh, that's good. He just wagged at you. Look, he's wagging. He's actually wagging.
Oh, that's good. Very good. Good man. That's so brave.
I don't think I've seen them take to someone this quickly and be the someone they don't know. They have such a nice relationship.
The issues that Avalon and Thunder had, and still have to some degree, are because of the puppy mill environment they were raised in. Working with them over these past few months and seeing how far they've come fills my heart with hope, and it makes me realize I have the greatest job in the world. Bill will be an excellent guardian, and I wish Thunder and Avalon the best success as they finally, after years of puppy mills and shelters, find themselves in their new forever home.
We've recently adopted Sugar, who we renamed Pumpkin, and he's been part of our family for about 4 months now. When we visited the shelter, there was little Pumpkin by himself in this big pen. And when we went in there, he was so sweet and adorable, and he just seemed to love the attention of the girls. It just felt like he was meant to be ours.
Every weekend, we have a Pumpkin Appreciation Day, and we take him to like Central Park or a new dog park.
I think rescue animals in general make amazing pets.
I remember when we first started walking together, that was quite the challenge. And now we've gotten to the point where we can walk down the street almost with no tension on the line. My wife, Debbie, was looking on the internet, looking for Malamutes that were in need of a home. She saw these two, and they're just gorgeous. And she said, well, they're Malamutes. They'll be just fine. We'll make room for them in our home. They're just sweet to be around, especially Av. She has got the sweetest little voice. It's been almost a full 3 months since we have adopted Avalon and Thunder, and we've come a long ways in getting to know each other. It's just that, you know, they have their special needs. I have no idea what they endured, but when we're all together, it's quite the pleasure. We love them dearly.
We recently adopted Salty, now known as Allie, and she's a proud member of our new family with her sister, Amber. And she's come a long way in 6 months.
It's important to rescue from a rescue shelter because they deserve to know that there's a meaning in life.
When we first adopted her, just to stare at her, she would take off and run away. Nowadays, she's confident enough to jump up on my lap, sits with me, and now is accepting neighbors that she's familiar with now. I think it's important to take a dog that had a bad start in life and let them know that everybody is not like the people that they were raised with, that there's someone out there to love them and take care of them.
And I love showing her that there's a real family out there since she went through a lot when she was little. They deserve to know that someone cares.
We lived during the Depression up in Flatbush. My father said, we're going to get a dachshund. From that time on, we've always had dachshunds. A friend of mine told me that she was a volunteer at St. Hubert's, and a week and a half later, I got a call from Bonnie, and she said, oh, they have a dachshund. And then my daughter and I went over, and we met this darling little Lily, and she came home with us. Her tail was between her legs all the time. She would go away from you. As you went down to pet her, she would back off, but she got over it very quickly. Oh, Lily, 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 yes. Let me wipe that eye out, yes. I'm 88 years old now, and I know a dog is the best friend you can probably have because they listen to all your problems. And yes, they don't talk, but they sympathize. And this is what we need as we get older, a little more sympathy. You get a little bit stiff, your feet hurt, your knees hurt, and so you just avoid walking. With Lily, I have to get out. She makes me walk. She just loves to go around the whole yard, sniff, 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 sniff. And I have to walk, and that is good for me physically. To be loved by someone, that's what dogs are for. And I think she knows this is home. I think we were meant for one another. You're just my old sweet girl.
Our last group of dogs from our first 6 months here have all finished the program. I know their families will get as much love and joy having them in their lives as we did working with them.
Oh my goodness.
All dogs deserve a chance to have a loving family. Even the most fearful. Especially the most fearful. We just got word that 17 more fearful dogs are due to arrive any minute now. Everyone's getting into gear and taking care of business. I see them every day staring up at me from behind the kennel doors, and I wonder if this is the day they will find their forever home. Our program is limited in the number of dogs we can work with, but if we take what we've learned here and share it with shelters across the country, I believe it will impact millions. The successes that I've seen here so far, I will never forget. It's been amazing and so rewarding to see these animals finally enjoy life. Watching them go from suffering and terror to playing and having people touch them and enjoying that. To see them become pets, I really have no words for how wonderful that is.